Hey everyone, we finally reached what I believe will be the last video in this FNaF teaser reaction series. We've come a long way, and now it's time to look at the teasers from the last games in the classic era of FNaF. FNaF 6 and Ultimate Custom Night. I might do the Steel Wool games some other time, but I do want to move on to some other stuff. And before we begin, I once again have to make a correction to my last video. I seem to be doing a lot of these. Last time I said this. All of these people were looking super deep into the number of lines or what could potentially fit in between them. When traveling to the future for a bit, the word sister location doesn't fit whatsoever in the lines. But as many of you pointed out, you can fit the FNaF acronym between the lines. I don't know why I didn't think of that. But anyway, without further ado, let's start looking at the many teasers of The first teaser for Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator was released on June 11th, 2017. Ooh, so close. Sorry 9/11 fans, June takes this one. This image was posted on FNAFworld.com, a set of what appeared to be Baby's green glowing eyes. While most assumed correctly that it was Baby, the file name being IamStillHere.jpg made some question if it was actually Springtrap, since those were the words used to reveal him all the way back in the FNaF 3 teaser. So what were people making of this? Well, for one, there was the usual excitement. For reference, the last content we got from FNaF, not counting the books, was the Sister Location Custom Night DLC released 6 months before this. This was the longest break in FNaF game content we've ever had at that point. Not too many theories yet since there wasn't really too much to go on, but I'll point out that a lot of people propose that this could be related to the twisted animatronics from the book. The next few teasers we got were released 2 months later on ScottGames.com. On August 8th, 2017, Scott was releasing a bunch of behind-the-scenes looks at his games. However, nearing the end of the day, we got 3 images of this Freddy plush, followed by static when it was over. The plush images had hidden lines that can be seen when brightening the image, but let's back up a bit. Those behind-the-scenes images looked pretty normal at first, but they were actually hidden teasers for FNaF 6. Let's go through them all. First one was Withered Freddy. There really wasn't anything hidden here, all normal. But the second image was the models for the Freddles. People noticed that the mesh wiring at the top left didn't match the one seen on the right. This suggested that it was probably a different model altogether. The third image was Springtrap. If you look at the bottom left, you can see that this hand did not match Springtrap's hand. Then there was this goofy look at Funtime Freddy, and people noticed that there was this weird mess of wiring. Well, I say wiring because we know what this is now, but back then there was no way to tell what the hell this was. Though this guy was basically right. Next was Baby, and probably the most obvious teaser so far. In the bottom left again, you can see a bit of hair which was clearly different from what Baby's hair actually looks like. The next 3 seemingly didn't have anything hidden in them, but then we got a behind the scenes look at FNaF 1's backstage cam. Behind the door, there's this weird head that wasn't present in the actual game. Nobody knew who or what this was, and to this day, people are still not sure. It doesn't look like any of the FNaF 6 animatronics, and everyone forgot about this image anyway, so it's hard to find people talking about it nowadays. I'm actually curious if any of you guys might know what this was supposed to be. And that was the last of the behind the scenes images. The next 3 were the previously mentioned Freddy plushes. At the time, we really didn't know what to make of this. Looking back with some hindsight, some theorized that the lines are supposed to be puppet strings, and this was teasing Lefty. You know, puppet plus Freddy, and you get Lefty. Overall, this was a pretty big day for FNaF teasers. It was the most we've gotten in a single day. And we wouldn't have to wait long for the next one. 10 days later, on August 18th, 2017, and we got our next teaser for the game. An 8-bit Freddy sprite with an 80s looking rainbow trailing behind him. To a lot of people, the rainbow looked similar to the LJN logo, an old toy and video game company that went out of business in '94. Now, something I neglected to mention before is that a couple months prior, Scott released a post on Steam giving some info on the upcoming project. In it, he basically confirmed that the next game was going to be FNaF 6, but there was something else in there that not a lot of people paid attention to. This line, "Maybe I'll try my hand at a Pizzeria Tycoon game, who knows?" This line was written in the context of Scott saying he enjoyed making goofy minigames for FNaF World, so nobody really gave it any thought. But now, with this new teaser, people were just starting to make the connection. Also, I never thought about it until I saw this comment, but I think it could make sense. The colors chosen for the rainbow, red, yellow, and blue, correspond to the other band members. Just thought that was pretty cool. Oh yeah, and hype. The next teaser was released somewhere you wouldn't expect. On August 29th, 2017, the Freddy Files was released. The first in a series of guidebooks meant to archive descriptions and lore about the FNaF franchise. At the very end of that book, like literally the last page, there was this photo. Clearly this was some iteration of Baby. The pigtails gave it away. The poster on the wall behind her read Freaks. This led to the community naming her Freak Show Baby. A bunch of theories for this one. A couple of people suggested that the claw attached to her hand might be the same one that was used to grab Elizabeth in the Sister Location minigame. Another theory was that this was our first look at the FNaF 6 office, since it's become standard at that point to have posters in the office walls. Regardless, this was very clearly teasing a FNaF 6, though the next teaser we got would put some doubt in that. We would have to wait a good minute before the next teaser was released, 2 months later on October 28th. We got another Pixel Freddy, this time accompanied by 3 Pixel Kids. The source code for this image had the phrase, "What is paragraph 4?" repeated over and over. This gave us something to chew on. A popular theory was that it was referring to the nightly phone calls. According to this guy, the 4th paragraph into the FNaF 1 Night 1 phone call was this.
Just be aware, the characters do tend to wander a bit. They're left in some kind of free roaming mode at night. Something about their servos locking up if they get turned off for too long. They used to be allowed to walk around during the day too, but then there was the bite of 87. Yeah, it's amazing that the human body can live without the frontal lobe, you know?
Could this mean that this upcoming game was finally going to give us an answer for the bite? Good theory, but as this guy pointed out, we don't actually know where the paragraph breaks are. The transcripts of the phone calls were all purely fan-made. It's not like we had an official script to look at. And, as others pointed out, there was another possibility. Remember that Steam post from earlier, the one where Scott brought up the possibility of a Pizzeria Tycoon game? What paragraph did he put that in? 1, 2, 3...
Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
With the possibility of a FNaF Tycoon game becoming more and more likely, no one was able to deduce that the Tycoon game and FNaF 6 would be one and the same. Some thought that this meant he was working on FNaF 6 and the Tycoon game at the same time. Others believed that it would take up the spot of FNaF 6, which would definitely disappoint people after all this time. Regardless, we still had a ways to go before we would figure out what was really going on. On November 3rd, 2017, FNAFworld.com changed again. The glowing baby eyes were now closed. This actually got a lot of people worried. As this dude pointed out, it looked like FNaF 6 was being put on a hold, while the upcoming Tycoon game took priority. There was actually a lot of disappointment going around. Most people would rather have another mainline FNaF game instead of some goofy Tycoon spin-off. The idea of FNaF 6 being put on hold would only be further evidenced by the next teaser, posted on Scott Games 5 days later on November 8th. Another Pixel Freddy, this time with him juggling pizzas. According to... Wait, Dawko, what are you doing here? As Dawko pointed out, this basically confirmed that previous theory about the Tycoon game postponing FNaF 6. Also, check out what this guy said. Spot on. On December 1st, 2017, Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator was officially announced with this image. Usually when it comes to these types of announcements, the community would erupt with hype. This time though, there were some concerns. More than usual for a FNaF game. For one, multiple people pointed out that these sprites looked kinda lazy and worse than his previous work. Not just that, but also the teasers this time around weren't very good. Besides those behind the scenes images, which some people didn't even know teased anything, the teasers for this Tycoon game were kinda boring with nothing hidden within them. Also, there was this one complaint, which I firmly agree with to this day, that there was no pineapple on the pizza. Yeah, that's right, you heard me. Fight me.
So good.
Anyway, when people weren't complaining about the quality of the teasers, they got to theorizing. Some people guessed that, similar to what we got with FNaF World, there was most likely going to be bits of hidden story elements scattered around the game. And I know I said there was more complaints than usual, but there was still some hype to go around. 2 days later, on December 3rd, we got our first look at actual gameplay, alongside a countdown towards the release date. If there was disappointment before, this only exacerbated it.
I really hope the whole game is not just throwing pizzas. This looks really awkward. Not really a fan. This lowered my hype. Am I the only one who really isn't excited for this game at all? Seduce me.
You know, looking back at these comments while knowing what Pizzeria Simulator actually was is incredible. This game was probably the greatest troll in Scott's whole career. The next day, we got another very similar teaser that just followed the countdown. Besides the text, it was the exact same image. Nothing really new to report. And then, the game released less than 24 hours later on December 4th, 2017. I know I usually don't go over the reactions to the actual game releases, but I feel like it's definitely warranted for this one. After all those teasers pointing towards some goofy 8-bit Tycoon game, people were completely surprised that this was actually the super anticipated FNaF 6. And on top of that, the game was completely free as well. And that marked the end of the FNaF 6 teaser era. The next game in the franchise was Ultimate Custom Night, which holds the record for most teasers in the entire series, with a whopping 69 teasers. So there's no way in hell I'm gonna go through each and every one of these. And besides, there's not really much to talk about anyway. The game was already announced by Scott, and everyone knew what we were getting. Besides the question of what characters were gonna be included or how they would play, there wasn't much theorizing going on. And that will pretty much do it. This has been a long and wild ride, and I've had a lot of fun making these videos. I'm so glad all of you guys seem to enjoy looking back at this FNaF time capsule with me. And while I did really enjoy making these, I'm excited to finally move on and do something different for a change. Shout out to my channel members. This week we have 2 new members. Welcome, Kishy Blanket and MattMax18. And thanks again to all the other members who joined along the way on this journey. It really does mean a lot. And of course, as always, thank you for watching. Remember to like it if you liked it, subscribe if you really liked it, and I'll see you next time.